Hello everybody and welcome back to my shop. Well, technically we're not at my shop, but we are on the way back to my shop. So anyway, welcome. Hey, once again, as usual, I want to thank everybody for subscribing to my channel. And we're actually driving down the road. It's a very cold day here in Oklahoma, and it's getting late in the evening. And I got a call from the Sandblaster today that he got my cab, or actually got Kevin's cab sandblasted. So I had to go get this thing picked up and get it back to the shop so we can get some epoxy primer on it. So anyway, I'm driving down the road. I have this thing in tow. I don't know if you can see it in the rearview mirror, but it's back there, and we're gonna get it back to the shop, and I'll do a walk around on this thing and show you what the sandblasting revealed. So anyway, we'll see you in a bit. All right, I'm back at the shop. I got this thing backed in just about the time it started getting dark outside. So anyway, we kind of found some stuff, or Cord did whenever he sandblasted this thing, some stuff that we didn't, some areas that we found some rust that I had no idea that was going to be rusty. One is up here in this cowl. If you can see real close, that section right there, those are actually rust holes that have went completely through there. And we kind of come over here a little bit more, you can see a few more pinholes. Those are actually rusted through. So those areas, like I said, I didn't expect that to be there. But at the end of the day, this truck, these trucks, those cowls are kind of open on the top. Some of them have vents, but in time those vents get destroyed. And of course, you know, leaves and all kinds of dirt and stuff end up getting down in there, and it sits up against those two pieces of metal. Of course, it rains and then that stuff starts to rot. So those are two areas that we have found that's definitely going to need repaired. When we look at the passenger side floorboard, there was some pretty significant rust, surface rust over here, but from what I can tell without moving the strap, that stuff all sandblasted out and it looks really good on this side. Door jambs are nice and clean. He went the extra mile and he went ahead and blasted the dash. And I didn't really need him to, but he did, which I'm glad he did, because I forgot that ashtray will probably, I'm gonna cover that, or we're gonna do something different there. And then that switch cover that's beside it, the hole there is for the dual tank option, so that will go away. Moving on around, we definitely knew that the cab corners had some problems and there was some rust in here. And then of course on this side, this had some pretty good surface rust in it. That's all come pretty clean. And you can kind of see there is some areas that we'll have to address. Pitting in here is a little bit deep, so we'll probably either fill that, or I'll put something, I'll cut that little small section out. Moving on around, the driver's side floor revealed some pretty significant damage. I was worried about this side. It's not bad, but there is a section here in the floor that I'll have to cut out. It got up into the kick panel as well. So there's that. And then the inner rocker, it's got some damage. So I may end up taking a little bit more apart on this side. I was just gonna patch this rocker, but I may end up taking this one off anyway, just so I can get what's in behind it fixed. But like I said, for the most part, it's in pretty good shape. We found one more spot of rust up there that we didn't expect. Not sure what caused that, but that area will have to be fixed, which everything is very minor as far as rust repair. It's just a little bit time consuming to fix it. I haven't looked underneath, but underneath looks really, really clean. So anyway, my plan is we're gonna run this up to my buddy's body shop tomorrow, and we're gonna try to get some epoxy primer on it to protect this bare metal. Then I'll bring it back and I'll start cutting some of this stuff out. So anyway, we'll get that done. I may take it up. I may take you guys with me and show you the epoxy process. So we'll see you in a bit. All right, so I tricked you guys again. We made the decision. I decided not to haul the cab up to the body shop. We actually, right over here behind me, we just set up and we sprayed the epoxy here. It was a fairly warm afternoon, opened up the doors, kicked some fans on, decided to spray the epoxy. And to be honest with you, it's really, I didn't film it because it wasn't that exciting. It's just, we put the epoxy on the bare metal, that's going to bite into the metal, and then that will give everything, the rest of the materials that go on top of it, a better chance of adhering to it. So as you can see behind me with all the little marks and stuff on the firewall, I've got the cab off of the rotisserie, and for the most part, I'm going to do the bulk of the metal work right here where it sits. And the first thing I'm going to start with, as you can see with all the marks, is going to be on the firewall section. But I think before I get started heavily on the metalwork, I'm going to go up front and show you guys the chassis that I got back from the powder coater. And I think the next thing I want to do before I start this, because this is going to be kind of time consuming, and I'm going to start assembling the suspension up front on the chassis. So we'll go up here and we'll check that out. All right, here we are up front. As I said earlier, this area up here, I plan on moving some stuff around. There was a big slot car track right here where this frame is at. And this is eventually, like I said, going to be my assembly area. So no better time to start than with this chassis. So as you can see, it's pretty, it's nice and black. Cord and his team down the road, they did a really good job. We didn't go with a super high gloss finish on this frame. So as you can also see around me here, I've got a bunch of parts that's already laid out. And I'm going to start putting a lot of these components on the frame. The first thing I got to do though, this cross member is just set up in here because this was powder coated separate from the frame. So I'm going to get the bolts and everything set up and ready, and we're going to start bolting the suspension and stuff back on this frame. Another thing that I'll probably will do while I have it sitting here is I'm probably going to go ahead and put the engine and transmission together and drop those into the chassis. My goal here is I'm going to try to get this completely built out to where it's a roller. Unfortunately, it's going to be a while the body and everything is at the paint shop. So anyway, let's get set up, and hopefully you guys enjoy me watching put this thing together. So. Okay, I got the cross member bolted in and torqued. I went ahead and put the engine saddle brackets in, and both lower control arms in, and got those torqued down. I've pre-hung the upper A-frames and spindles. Now, the next thing I'm gonna have to do on the suspension is get these coil springs stuck in here. And honestly, using the weight of the engine on the frame actually makes this a little bit easier. So I think the next thing I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna bolt the engine and transmission together, which I had said earlier that that's what was coming up in the near future. So I think I'm going to get the engine transmission ready, and I'm gonna set those down in the chassis. Now, we haven't revealed the paint color on this truck yet, so I'm probably not gonna film that. And in fact, once I do get the engine set down in here, I'm probably gonna have it covered up. So we gotta find kind of a creative way to release, to unveil, so to speak, the color of this thing. So because the engine is, of course, painted the body color. So anyway, I think that's what I'm gonna do. So once I get that set up, then I'll be back and I'll finish building out this front suspension. So we'll see you shortly. Okay, I got the engine and transmission set down in the chassis, and I did that because I want to use the additional weight to help me compress the springs to build out the front suspension. Also, I said that since the engine is the body color of the truck, I'm going to leave this covered up, and then if they want to figure out a way to reveal this engine color, then great. So anyway, before I can actually start compressing this spring, which you can see I've got my jack set here in place, there's a set of shims that actually shim the upper A-frames off the supports. And what I did is when I took this thing apart, I basically marked these things, which shim stack came out of which spot. I know that these are rusty, and whenever we go back together, once this truck goes to the front end alignment shop, we'll change these out. But right now, I just want to put these in here. That way I have kind of a pre-setting as to where they're going to set. So I got to do that. And then once these are in here, then I'll see if I can get the suspension compressed. Okay, run the nuts up so far, get them somewhat close, then grab your first stack of shims. We'll put this in here, snug this down, and then we'll set the front ones in, and we can snug both of these bolts, both of these nuts down. And then we'll repeat it on the passenger side. Okay, now that I've got both upper control arms snugged up and into place, I also pulled the spindle off the upper control arm and set it down on the lower. This is a 4-inch drop kit in the front, so these springs are a lot shorter than what you see from the factory. So the next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stick the spring up in here. The lower control arm has an indentation right here where this part of the spring will actually ride. And for the most part, it's pretty simple to install. You just put them in there, kind of aim that up, and then we'll start bringing this jack up here to get the tension in. And once we're there, we're just going to bring that up a little bit more. And then we're going to get this nut started on this spindle. And that's about it. I'll tighten these up, and then I'll get my cotter pins put into here, and then I'll repeat this process on the other side. Now that I have the engine and transmission set down in Kevin's chassis, there's one other thing that I wanted to do. I'm hoping you guys will remember, but a couple of videos ago, I fit this cross member while the truck was sitting back here on the 2-post lift. And this is a cross member that I bought to fit that truck. And as I was fitting the transmission and I set the transmission down on this thing kind of had some flex to it. I don't really care for that. So as you can see, it's just open channel. And I'm going to plate this. Now, I could probably take rectangle tubing and I could probably build my own. But since I already have this, I think I'll just modify this. Once I'm done, I'll probably either just paint it or I may send it down and have it repowder coated. So anyway, I've already kind of began the process. I've cut a bunch of plates, and what this started with, this was just 4" by 1/8" strap. And I've cut these pieces that will fit and lay down into this cross member. I also had to narrow this just a little bit. This thing's not quite 4 inches wide. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do next. So stick around and hopefully enjoy this. Okay, I got everything tacked in. I've got everything plated. I've doubled the center section here and just welded it, and then I capped this in. So this thing should be nice and rigid once I get this all welded out. Now, additionally, I'll have to come in and I'll set this thing up in my mill, and I'll bore these. I'll mill these slots back out on the mounting flange and also where the transmission mount goes. So another thing that I'm gonna do as I start to weld this out so I don't get any flex or draw, I'll put something across this heavy piece of steel and I'll clamp this down. That way it won't flex or anything as I'm welding this out. So I'm gonna weld it out and then dress up these welds, and that'll pretty much finish this up. you guys get the idea. I'll dress everything out. Now my welds are definitely good enough where I wouldn't have had to grind them off, but sometimes I get a little carried away and I just wanted it nice and clean. But anyway, I'll finish this thing out and I'll get it installed. Okay, I was planning on building out the rest of the brakes, getting the rotors and the calipers and everything, but it dawned on me I don't have the bearings. The kit that we bought didn't come with new bearings, so I'm gonna have to run to the parts store tonight, pick up some bearings. I've got to get a set of shocks ordered and a couple other components. Also, the front suspension components, the actual steering components, I have to get some of it I bought new, and some of the other stuff is still old, so I got to clean it up. Like the center link, I've got to clean it up and get those painted and ready, get those ready. So I think I'm going to move on to the back. One of the next things we got to put on is the fuel tank, and we'll move back here to the back, and I'll kind of give you the rundown on what we're doing with the fuel tank. Okay, to accommodate the 5.3 that we're putting into this truck, we went with this Tanks Incorporated system, and as you can see, it's pretty much a complete kit. It comes with the sending unit, it comes with the fuel pump, which is a GPA4. I forget what the liters per minute is on this, but it's more than adequate to fuel the 5.3. These things come with two holes up here. One's for the fuel pump, and the other one is for the factory sending unit. So they're very easy to install. They pretty much come complete. As you see, this one is already powder coated, and this is probably the next thing that we're going to hang on the frame. But before I can do any of this, I'm going to have to go outside where it's nice and cold and get the old brackets off the old fuel tank and get those cleaned and prepped and ready for paint. So come along. Nice and cold. I may end up going to the Sawzall and cut these. Yeah, I think I'm gonna get a Sawzall. This will be much quicker because I got new straps. So, be right back. All right, got me an extra battery. This is gonna get kind of loud, and it's cold, and I'm trying to, as you can see, it's starting to get dark. All right, and we have separation. We'll get this stuff dragged inside, and I'll see you back inside. All right, so there's the fuel tank bracket hangers. These will bolt to the frame, and of course, that kit came with new straps. That's one of the reasons why I went ahead and cut these things. So I'm gonna cut these rivets off and get these old straps out of the way, and then I'm gonna throw these brackets in my bead blaster behind me, get them things cleaned up. Once I get them cleaned up, then I'm gonna put some epoxy on them, put some color on them, we'll hang them on the frame, and we'll put a tank on. So that was considerably more involved than what I figured it was gonna be. The way those rivets were put on those straps, they sandwiched in between those two pieces of metal. And these two brackets were tack welded, so I had to cut these tack welds loose and separate that. And then as you saw, I was able to cut those rivets out and get those rivets driven out of there. So that If I'd have known it was going to be that much work, I might have actually taken some penetrating oil and tried to get those other ones freed up and not to actually pull them. But anyway, I'm going to finish the other one up, and then this will actually make it a little bit easier in my cabinet. So I'm going to finish ripping this other one apart, and then I'm going to throw them in the cabinet and we'll get to blasting. Okay, I got these things broken apart. Now I'm going to throw them in the sandblaster and stand here for a few hours getting these things cleaned up. So here goes nothing. I don't know if you guys want to stick around and watch this. This is going to be very, very boring. All right, I got those parts back there. I've got them bead blasted, and now it's pretty much got some epoxy on them and got a coat of paint stuck on them. And I'm sure you don't want to watch paint dry, so I'm pretty much, for the most part, I think I'm going to call it a night. At the same time, I think I'm going to wrap this video up. I have a bunch of parts that I'm going to have to go chase down, just a lot of loose parts, you know, bearings and shocks, and also come to the determination on the fuel tank. There's some basically they're felts that go on the straps. They're kind of a silencer for the tank strap. So I need to get that kind of stuff here before I can put the fuel tank on. But Kevin was here at the shop earlier, and he and I were talking about trying to find kind of a neat way to reveal the paint color. But I think I'm just going to let the cat out of the bag right here, and I'm getting ready to rip the sheet off this engine, and I'm going to let you guys see the color firsthand. And you can kind of drop me a comment or whatever you want. But the color that's on the engine block is the color the truck's going to be. So are you guys ready? Do I need a drum roll? Countdown, 3, 2, 1, or just rip it off like a Band-Aid? There it is. It is seafoam green. That is the color. That is the color that him and his wife has picked out. So let me grab the camera and I'll pan around just a little bit, and I'll finish this video by saying I hope you guys enjoyed it, and as much as I did putting it together. And as usual, I thank you guys for tuning in, and I look to see you on the next build. Thanks for watching. Coffee break.